Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I woke up to my husband already moving on top of me. I am Claire, 29, and that night everything tilted. I felt his weight and rhythm and that familiar pattern. My mind snapped awake though my body stayed heavy. I kept my eyes shut and let the panic crawl up slow. For a few seconds I thought maybe I dreamed it. You know that fuzzy line when sleep clings to you? Then his hand pushed at my hip and there was no dream. My throat wanted to form his name and it just stalled. I lay there like a prop while my heart slammed against my ribs. The stupid thought that hit me first was this: did I fall asleep in the middle and forget? I tried to rewind the evening and nothing showed up. No kissing before bed, no flirting, nothing leading to this. Still he kept going like a scene that had started without me. I tested one small thing to see if he noticed. I let my leg twitch just a little under him. He paused for a breath, then settled back into the same motion. No whispered check-in, no are you awake, no are you okay. The pause hurt more than if he had never stopped at all. I told myself to speak just one short word. My tongue felt thick like I had swallowed glue. If I moved now, the whole thing would become real. I thought about arguing half awake while he hovered above me. So I chose the only control I felt I had and stayed limp. His breathing changed long before I adjusted to any of it. Slower, deeper, focused in a way I recognized too well. He shifted my arm when it got in his way. He did it gently, almost careful, like you move a sleeping child. Somehow that careful touch scared me more than roughness ever could. I started counting in my head to keep from shaking. 1 to 10, then 20, then I lost track completely. My chest burned from holding in air for too long. Every second stretched and thin like it would snap. I remember thinking if I cried he might not even see it. When he finished, he dropped his weight for a moment. All of him pressed into me, heavy and satisfied and relaxed. Then he rolled off with this tired little grunt. The mattress bounced and his side of the bed creaked once. A minute later, he was breathing like someone who slept well. I stared at the darkness behind my eyelids like it was a screen. If I opened my eyes, I would have to move. If I moved, I would have to decide what this was. My mind sprinted through labels and stopped on nothing solid. I just lay there while my skin felt wrong where he had touched it. At some point, my body started to hurt from staying frozen. My lower back ached, my shoulder throbbed, my jaw locked tight. I shifted very slowly, like the bed might shout if I moved. He did not stir, not even a murmur from his side. That silence answered a question I had not wanted to ask. I slid out from under the covers inch by inch. My feet hit the floor and felt colder than they should. I walked to the bathroom with that careful middle of the night walk. Not to wake the person I was suddenly scared of facing. The light flicked on and I flinched at my own reflection. My face looked normal, which felt insane. No big sign that something inside me had twisted. My hair was messy, my eyes wide, that was it. I gripped the sink so hard my fingers started to tingle. I wanted to scrub my whole body and also not touch myself at all. I turned on the water and let it run for a moment. The sound covered the noise of my breathing, sharp and uneven. I kept seeing the way he shifted me without checking. Like my body was familiar, but my mind did not factor in. That was the part that kept punching me in the chest. I thought about walking back and shaking him awake. I pictured his confused face, maybe an annoyed frown. I could hear his lines in my head before he spoke. Relax, you like it, you always say I can start anything. The argument stacked up on his side before I even opened my mouth. So I did what I am not proud of now. I shut off the water, turned off the light, and went back. The room felt tighter, though nothing had moved an inch. I slid under the blanket and lay on the very edge. He snored softly, like the night had been perfectly uneventful. I watched the faint glow from the digital clock blur and sharpen. Minutes crawled and my body refused to settle again. My brain dug for any memory that could excuse this. Had I ever told him I liked being touched in my sleep? Even if I had, did that cover lying there unresponsive like that? The more I searched, the more empty space I found. I remembered every time I asked for reassurance before. Are you sure? Is this okay? Do you like this? Never once had he needed to ask me those things. The imbalance suddenly felt huge, like a gap I had ignored for years. I tried to force myself into denial because it seemed safer. It is your husband, I told myself. He loves you. He would never try to hurt you on purpose like that. Maybe he thought you stirred and wanted it, maybe you did. I repeated those lines until they sounded almost believable. At some point I decided I should at least sleep a little. Tomorrow would be normal, I would act fine, that was the plan. If I treated it like a weird one-off moment, it might fade. He shifted behind me and draped an arm over my waist. My whole body flared rigid while I forced myself to stay still. His palm rested there warm and heavy like every other night. My brain threw up two versions of him at the same time. The man who made me laugh and the man who used my silence. Both faces belonged to the same person in the same bed. I did not know which one I was actually lying beside. I must have drifted for short stretches because the alarm hit hard. The sound sliced through the leftover fog in my skull. His hand shot out and hit the button in one practiced move. He rolled toward me and pressed a quick kiss to my shoulder. "Morning, babe," he muttered, voice thick with sleep and ease. I forced a small sound that could pass as a greeting. My lips stretched into something like a smile he could not see. He swung his legs out of bed and stretched with a low groan. Everything in his movement screamed comfort, routine, home. I lay there and tried not to compare that ease to last night. When I finally got up, he was already in the kitchen. I walked in and he looked up with that usual half grin. "Sleep okay?" he asked, already reaching for my mug. I watched his hands move like they always did in the morning. Those same hands that had moved me around hours earlier. I leaned against the counter so I did not have to stand too close. "Yeah, fine," I said, voice casual and flat at the same time. "You," I added, like a normal wife making normal small talk. He shrugged, said he crashed hard, long day, you know. He slid the mug toward me and our fingers barely brushed. That tiny contact sent a quick jolt through me. Not desire, not warmth, just raw awareness and a spike of dread. He had no idea what kind of movie replayed in my head. Or he did and chose to act like we both agreed to rewrite it. Either option felt like standing on thin ice with no sound underneath. I thought about saying his name and just spitting it out. "Last night, do you remember what you did in bed?" The words lined up in my throat and stuck there again. He talked about an email he had to send before 9. I nodded along and watched him walk away from the question. After breakfast, I pretended to scroll my phone for nothing. In reality, I typed a note with 3 clumsy lines about the night. My thumb hovered over the idea of sending it to a friend. I imagined reading my own message from the outside. The thought made my stomach turn and I erased every word. All day my mind snap cut back to the same scene. His weight, his hand on my hip, the way he never checked. I moved through the day on autopilot, smile where needed, answers when asked. Every quiet second stretched long enough for the memory to rush back. By late afternoon, I already knew this would not fade on its own. That night when we got into beds, the air felt loaded. He scrolled on his phone for a bit, laughing at something pointless. I lay still, eyes on the ceiling I could barely see. My body remembered the feeling of playing dead too clearly. I realized I was waiting to see if he would try it again. I did not say a word as he turned off the screen. He kissed my cheek, told me good night in that soft, familiar tone. The same voice that once meant safety now came with a shadow. I mumbled something back and shut my eyes on purpose this time. I did not know it yet, but I was already planning a test. I climbed into bed that night already playing dead. My pulse was racing, my breathing slow on purpose. He slid in beside me like always, mattress dipping. I shut my eyes and let my body sag into the pillow. This time I was not half awake by accident, I was bait. He scrolled on his phone for a while, screen flickering. I listened to every small movement like it was a signal. Fabric rustling, a quiet sigh, the faint click when he locked it. Darkness settled over us and the room felt smaller. I lay there counting my heartbeats and waiting for the shift. I told myself I could still back out if nothing happened. If he just turned over and went asleep, I could breathe. I would call the first night some messed up fluke and move on. I would swallow it, file it somewhere deep and dark. Part of me begged for that boring outcome, honestly. The problem with this kind of test is simple. You never want to be right, but you need the proof. So I let my arm stay limp by my side, unmoving. I made my breath shallow and steady like fake sleep. I listened so hard my ears actually started to hurt. He rotated toward me, sheets dragging under his legs. The mattress sank closer to my side with a slow lean. His hand hovered above my shoulder, then dropped lightly. He traced a small pattern there while I stayed unresponsive. I felt my back tighten even as I kept it slack. Usually I react to that touch, I tilt my head. I joke, complain, tease something, there is always noise from me. Tonight I gave him nothing, like a mannequin placed there. He hesitated, his fingers pausing like they were thinking. Then his hand slid down my arm in one long line. I wanted him to stop right there and roll away. Instead he crept closer, his chest pressed against my spine. I forced myself to stay soft, no flinch, no jerk. He waited a beat, maybe two, like he was checking again. Then I felt his knees tucked behind mine, body curling around me. There is a difference between cuddling and what came next. You know it in your gut before your head even catches up. I knew his patterns, the little build-up before he starts anything. The slow shift of his hips, the extra pressure against me. My mind started yelling while my body played statue. I had this insane thought that maybe I groaned earlier. Maybe I twitched in some inviting way and forgot already. I gave myself that tiny chance to blame it on confusion. So I tested it properly and stayed absolutely still. He kept going anyway and removed my last excuse. I will not walk you through every second of that. You already understand the shape of it after the first night. What mattered to me was the pattern, not the mechanics. He only stopped once to adjust me like I was in his way. He never called my name, not even once, not even a whisper. At one point my throat burned from swallowing words. I almost blurted out, I almost ruined my own experiment. Then another thought hit me harder than any panic. If I spoke now, he could claim confusion forever. I wanted to see what he did when he truly believed I slept. That choice haunts me now, I am not proud of it. I let the scene play out longer than I should have. I stayed frozen, listening to his breathing grow focused again. Every controlled inhale felt like a step over a line. I waited until I could not tell my own shaking from the mattress. When he finally went still, the whole bed exhaled with him. He rolled to his back and stretched like after a workout. Then he turned away from me and pulled the blanket up. Within a minute, his breathing evened out into deep rest. Meanwhile, I lay there wide awake, buzzing under my own skin. The second it was clear he was out, I opened my eyes. The ceiling blurred over me like a blank screen with no answers. My hands tingled from staying slack too long at my sides. I flexed my fingers once, twice, just to feel them again. I felt like I had been holding a plank for an hour. I slid my hand under the pillow and squeezed the edge. It grounded me enough to think in full sentences again. So this is not a one-off, my brain finally said. He did it again with more care, more stealth, more certainty. He did it to someone he believed was unconscious the entire time. The room felt thick, like the air itself was accusing me. You let it happen again, that ugly voice hissed in my head. You set it up, you stayed quiet, you chose this experiment. I started blaming myself before I even climbed out of bed. That was easier than turning all that anger toward him. I slipped out of the bed slower than the night before. My legs shook a little when they hit the floor. I moved toward the doorway and glanced back over my shoulder. He lay there on his side, arm tucked under his head. He looked peaceful, almost boyish, like any ordinary husband. That picture messed with me more than anything he had done. Monsters should look like monsters, right? Not like this. He murmured something unintelligible and shifted his knee. My whole body reacted like he might leap up and grab me. I almost laughed at the absurdity, then my throat closed tight. In the hallway, I pressed my back to the wall and slid down. My knees pulled up, my arms wrapped around them for support. I tried to breathe quietly so I would not wake him. It hit me how twisted that instinct was, protecting his sleep. I could not even break down loudly in my own home. I kept replaying every choice that led right there. Not the marriage, not the big life stuff, just that night. Lying still on purpose, ignoring each chance to interrupt him. Some part of me treated my body like a lab test. I wanted data and now I had it and I hated it. Sitting on the floor, I realized something important and awful. If I confronted him later, he could call it a misunderstanding. But I could not unknow the way he had tested my stillness. He waited for signs of waking and got none, yet continued. That knowledge sat in my chest like a solid, heavy stone. I considered doing something dramatic right then. Calling a friend in the middle of the night, leaving the house. Packing a bag and driving anywhere with an open hotel. The urge to flee churned hot under my skin and pushed hard. Then another voice whispered that I might be overreacting. That is the woe. RSD part, honestly, that second voice. The one that lists bills and shared plans and normal mornings. It reminds you of his jokes, his help, his good days. It tells you people on the internet love to exaggerate. It asks if you really want to blow up your life over this. I stayed on the floor until my legs went numb. Eventually, the quiet of the house started to feel eerie. I dragged myself upright and walked back to the bedroom door. I stood there for a long time just watching his back rise. Every breath he took felt like a question I could not answer. When I climbed back under the blanket, I stayed on my edge again. I kept a strip of mattress between us like a tiny border. He reached out once in his sleep and brushed my arm. I flinched so fast that my own reaction woke him. He mumbled something, rolled away, and went right back under. Lying there, I realized I could not pretend ignorance anymore. The first night I could maybe call foggy, unclear, halfway asleep. This time I had gone in with my eyes wide open. I had watched the whole thing from inside my own stillness. And now I had to decide what to do with what I knew. I did not sleep for the rest of that night, not really. I drifted in shallow little drops, jerking awake at every shift. Every time the bed moved, my body locked up again. By the time the alarm finally rang, my brain felt raw. He stretched beside me with the comfort of someone who slept well. He got up, moving through the same easy routine as always. I followed slower, feeling like a stranger in my own kitchen. He poured coffee and asked if I wanted anything for breakfast. My mouth said no, my stomach twisted into a tight knot. He did not seem to notice the delay before I answered. All morning, I watched him through a new lens I hated. Every casual touch felt like a replay button pressed in my chest. Every harmless joke sounded slightly off, like it came through static. Nothing huge changed on the surface, which made it worse. Only I knew that the ground under us had cracked overnight. By the time afternoon rolled around, I had made a decision. I would not let a third night turn into another silent experiment. I needed to push this out of the shadows and into words. Not for a fight, not yet, but for my own sanity. I could not keep lying next to him like a prop in his bed. I grabbed my phone as soon as he left the room. The browser was already open from something boring earlier. I erased the old search and typed 3 words. Sex while sleeping, then I froze and stared at it. The suggestions popped up fast like they had been waiting. Sleepy sex normal, husband initiates while I sleep. One of them had the word assault in it and my stomach clenched. I backed out of the whole thing like I had touched something hot. I went back in and tried softer language. Is it okay if your partner touches you when asleep? Even reading that line, I could hear myself trying to sound calm. Like the way you ask a doctor a question you already fear. The first links looked harmless enough at a glance. Forums, advice columns, random strangers who sounded confident. I tapped one where the title basically said it was no big deal. Of course, I went for the one that promised comfort first. People wrote about waking up with kisses and laughing about it. One woman joked that her husband never let her sleep in. They threw around words like cute and spontaneous and playful. I read every one of those lines and used them as a shield. None of them described lying completely still through the whole thing. None of them mentioned staying silent on purpose from start to finish. I kept scrolling anyway, determined to find a version of me. If they were fine, maybe I could be fine too, right? Farther down the page, the mood flipped hard. Someone talked about feeling used when they woke up halfway. Another person called it a violation without even softening the term. I felt my throat tighten like I had swallowed a pebble. I clicked into that thread and my chest kicked up again. The original post sounded closer to my reality than anything else. She described lying there, unsure if speaking would make things worse. Comments flooded in and most of them took her side fast. I watched strangers use words I had tiptoed around in my own head. They talked about consent needing actual awareness. They said a marriage license is not a lifetime pass. My thumb hovered over the screen while my brain tried to argue. The arguing part of me got loud very quickly. It pointed out every tiny difference between her situation and mine. She was drunk in her story, I was not, that must matter. Her partner sounded cruel in the comments, mine made breakfast. I backed out of that thread and opened a blank note. If I wrote it myself, maybe I would see it more clearly. I started with something mild. My husband sometimes initiates when I am almost asleep. I stared at the word almost for a long T. Me? I deleted almost and replaced it with half. Then half looked wrong, so I tried pretty tired. Every change pushed the truth a little further away from what happened. I watched myself water it down in real time and did it anyway. When I typed the part about not moving, my hands shook. I feel frozen and just let him continue, that was the sentence. I stared at the word let, then wanted to punch myself. That one word shifted all the weight onto me in one move. If I am being honest, I kept it there for a while. Let sounded nicer than anything harsher I could have used. Let sounded like I agreed even if it was passive and scared. I chose that on purpose because the alternative terrified me. For a second I imagined hitting post on some anonymous board. I pictured usernames I did not know tearing the story apart. One group would tell me to run, another would tell me to grow up. I could hear both sides mocking me before they even existed. That imaginary chorus was enough to make me bail. I selected everything in the note and erased it with one tap. The screen looked cleaner, but my chest felt heavier. It was like I had just deleted the only witness I had. I tried to distract myself with something normal after that. A random video, some useless article, anything without weight. My thumb moved, but my mind stayed stuck on those threads. Every cheerful headline felt fake against what I had just read. Eventually, I gave up and went back to the search bar. This time I typed consent when you are unconscious. Seeing that combination of words made my skin crawl. I hit enter anyway because part of me was done pretending. One article that popped up had actual law terms in it. I skimmed the first lines and felt my pulse jump again. It talked about capacity and awareness and explicit permission. I got halfway down the page before my vision blurred with panic. I locked my phone like that would lock the information away. The room suddenly felt too quiet, way too intimate with my thoughts. I pressed the device to my chest as if I could absorb answers. All I really absorbed was the sense that I could not unknow any of it. Right then my phone buzzed and nearly flew out of my hand. A text from him lit up the screen with some normal question. Do you want takeout tonight or should I cook? I stared at it, then at the search tab still open behind it. The contrast made me dizzy for a second. On one side of the screen, legal words and heavy terms. On the other, a simple message about dinner like any random day. I typed back takeout is fine and erased the rest of the truth. He sent a thumbs up and a little joke after that. I forced out a short laugh in the empty room like a trained response. My body still remembered lying still, my mind remembered the threads. He was out there planning sauces while I studied the word consent. I know I could have texted something real right then. Hey, I need to talk about last night would have fit. My fingers would not move toward that sentence no matter how I tried. It felt like once I wrote it out loud, nothing would ever go back. Instead, I opened a different tab and searched therapists. Just the word alone made my eyes sting in a weird way. I clicked on one profile and tried to imagine telling her everything. I shut it down before the page even loaded completely. I kept finding reasons not to take any step that looked final. Money, time, schedules, all the usual grown-up excuses. If I am honest with myself now, I was just scared of labels. I did not want anyone else to name what I still refused to name. As the afternoon dragged, I started rewriting history in my head. I remembered jokes we had made about him never letting me sleep. I twisted those lines into something like permission given in advance. It was easier to pretend I had signed off on everything long ago. I even tried to blame how relaxed I looked when I slept. Maybe he thought I enjoyed it because I did not push him away. Maybe he saw my lack of struggle as some weird kind of interest. I piled maybes on top of each other until they almost felt solid. Underneath all those maybes sat one simple fact. He had proof I was not awake on both nights more than once. He kept going anyway because nothing stopped him, not even me. No amount of mental gymnastics could change that part. That truth hovered at the edge of my mind like a storm. Anytime I got close to it, I swerved away. I made coffee, did chores, answered emails with fake calm. Inside, I was wrestling with the same three words over and over. At one point, I caught myself rehearsing his side of it. I could hear him calling it a misunderstanding with practiced confidence. I thought you liked it that way, you never complained. My own imagined version of him sounded convincing enough to rattle me. I kept adjusting my story to make his future defense easier. I swapped out strong verbs for softer ones inside my head. Vors, D became started, violated became uncomfortable, everything toned down. It was like I was building the case against myself before he ever spoke. By the time he walked through the door that evening, I was drained. He came in with a paper bag and a casual greeting. The smell of food filled the place and my stomach lurched. You would think I would explode right there, but I did not. We ate on the couch because that was our usual lazy routine. He talked about a meeting, about traffic, about nothing heavy. I nodded at the right moments and threw in small comments. Every time I opened my mouth wider, the words I needed slipped back. At one point, he reached over and brushed something off my cheek. I flinched so hard the fork nearly fell from my hand. His brow pulled together for a second as he watched me. "You good?" he asked, voice light but eyes a little sharper. "Just tired," I answered, forcing my shoulders to relax. He kept studying me for one long beat that stretched. Then he shrugged it off and moved on to the next topic. I let him, even though a part of me screamed at my own silence. Later, when we cleaned up, I watched our small domestic dance. Passing containers, rinsing, tossing things away, everything practiced. It hit me how many habits we had built without thinking. Now this new secret sat underneath all of them like a hidden layer. I wish I could tell you I chose myself that night. That I pulled him aside and ripped the comfort right open. Instead, I went through the motions until the day wound down. Every small normal act made the coming night feel heavier. When I finally stepped into the bedroom, my chest tightened. The bed looked the same as always, neatly made. I knew what had already occurred there twice in a row. I also knew I still had not said one direct word about it. I lay down on my side, wide awake under the blanket. My body tensed at every sound from the hallway. I told myself this would be the night I confronted him if he tried again. Another smaller voice whispered that I might freeze anyway. That was the most honest picture of me in that moment. On one side of the scale, everything I had read that day. On the other, the life we shared and the version of him I loved. I went to sleep, if you can call it that, balanced right on that edge. I snapped the lamp on while he was still on top of me. The light hit us and he jerked back like he'd been caught stealing. His hands flew to the blanket, yanking it over his hips. I stayed exactly where I was, breathing hard, heart slamming loud. He stared at me, eyes wide, mouth open but empty. "What are you doing?" I asked, voice rough and sharp. Not yelling, just that flat tone that lands harder than shouting. He glanced at the clock, then at me again, lost for words. "I thought you were asleep," he finally managed, shoulders tight. "Yeah," I answered, "that's the problem, not the excuse." He dragged a hand over his face like he could wipe this away. "I just started, you know how we are, it was nothing." Hearing him call it nothing almost broke something in me. I lay there without moving the entire time, remember that. My voice shook but the words came out crystal clear. "You never checked, you never asked, you just used me." He flinched at the word used like I had slapped him. "Come on, don't say it like that, that's messed up." He shifted closer, then thought better of it and stayed put. "We fool around when you're sleepy all the time, you like it." That line hit exactly where he aimed it, right in my doubt. I felt my jaw clench while every part of me wanted to fold. "We fool around when I respond, when I wake up, when I touch back." I held his gaze so he could see I was done softening it. He laughed once, short and humorless, then shook his head. "So what, now I'm some predator because I got carried away?" He said the word like it was ridiculous, like I was absurd. "You're my wife, this is us, this is our thing." I pushed myself upright, blanket pulled around my chest. "This is not our thing, you made this your thing alone." My hands were shaking, but I kept them visible, no hiding. Being married doesn't mean you get a sleeping body by default. He swung his legs over the edge, back toward me. "You never complained before, not once, not even jokingly." He pointed hard at the floor like that proved something. You moan, you move, you grab me, you enjoy it. Not when I'm pretending to be unconscious on purpose. The words came out sharper than I planned, and I let them stay. He froze, that one detail landing heavier than the rest. What do you mean pretending? He asked, voice low and suspicious. I swallowed, then forced myself not to look away from him. I tested you, I answered. I stayed limp and quiet 2 nights. I watched his face cycle through confusion, insult, something like panic. You knew I wasn't moving, you still kept going anyway. He stood up fast, hands on his hips, acing a short line. So you set me up, that's what you're telling me. He pointed toward the bed like it was the witness here. You acted asleep to see if I'd touch my own wife. That twist landed exactly where he wanted it, right in my guilt. For a second, I almost apologized for investigating my own life. Then I remembered his weight pinning me down while I counted breaths. I acted still to see if you needed my yes, I answered. He laughed again, louder this time, almost mocking. You always want my hands on you, you beg for it. He threw past moments in my face like evidence stacked in court. Now suddenly the same thing is a crime because you changed your mind. Hearing him call it the same thing snapped something else inside. It is not the same as when I'm awake and wanting you. I could feel my chest rising fast, but I leaned forward anyway. If I'm not there with you, it's not sex, it's something else. He rolled his eyes like I had started speaking another language. You were there, your body was literally right under me. He spread his hands wide like this logic should comfort me. I know you, I know your tells, I can feel when you hate it. You didn't stop long enough to figure that out, I answered. I twitched once and you moved my leg like furniture. His cheeks flushed darker and I could tell he remembered. That tiny detail sat between us like a loaded weapon. We've joked about this, he pushed on, desperate now. You said you liked when I took charge, when you didn't have to think. He stepped closer, searching my face for any softness left. I thought I was giving you what you wanted without the hassle. That explanation hit me in a way he did not expect. Because I heard the truth inside it, twisted but real. He liked me quiet because it required less checking, less work. I used to call that confidence, now it sounded lazy and dangerous. So it's easier when I'm not talking back, that's what you're saying. I tilted my head and watched him squirm under his own logic. You prefer a version of me that doesn't interrupt, doesn't resist, doesn't exist. Saying it out loud made my skin prickle, but I did not stop. He dragged his palms over his face again, pacing faster. You're blowing this up, he muttered, not quite looking at me. You read something online, now you're turning me into a monster. That last word hung in the air and he flinched at his own choice. I could have reassured him there and I almost did. I almost reached out and said I knew he loved me. That he was not some stranger in an alley, that it was different. Then I pictured my own body lying still under him and shut my mouth. Did you ever think to just ask? I finally asked. Do you like when I start while you're out of it? I held up my hands, giving him the exact line to use. You skipped that part, went straight to the part that suited you. He stopped pacing and met my eyes with something cooler. If I had asked, you probably would have said yes anyway. His voice sounded calmer now, which somehow scared me more. Why are we pretending you're fragile when you're not? That word fragile hit me right behind the ribs. Fragile sounded weak and dramatic and breakable. Fragile sounded like something you blame for cracking wrong. I realized he was trying to make my discomfort another flaw. I'm not fragile, I answered quietly, I'm telling you my line. I pointed straight at the bed, the site of all of this. No more touching me when I'm not clearly with you ever. My voice settled there, steady in a way I actually believed. He snorted, a short disbelieving sound, then folded his arms. So what, I need a sign slip every single time now. He did a little mocking head tilt like he thought that was clever. You want me to stop in the middle and do a full check-in? Yes, I shot back quicker than I expected, I want you to check in. Say my name, wait for a word, notice if I respond at all. I tapped my chest with 2 fingers, grounding myself in the demand. If I'm a pillow to you, we're done sleeping in the same bed. His eyes narrowed at that last part and the room shifted. You'd really nuke our whole life over this one thing. He gestured around like the apartment was on trial with him. You'd throw everything away because I misread you a couple times. There it was, the framing he needed, the smaller word. Misread like he'd misunderstood a text, not my entire body. I heard myself laugh once, sharp and humorless, because I was done. It wasn't a misread, it was you not caring enough to be sure. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried another approach. If you hated it so much, why didn't you stop me sooner? His gaze drilled into me, hunting for proof I failed myself. You just lay there, that felt like a yes at the time. That line hurt more than anything else he'd thrown out. Because he aimed right at the part I already blamed. I froze, Ian's. Word voice much softer, throat tight. I shut down, and you took that shutdown as a green light. He watched me for a long moment, jaw shifting, breathing uneven. For the first time that night, he actually looked rattled. Not because he understood, but because he could see I meant it. This wasn't a scare tactic, this was me choosing myself out loud. What do you want from me right now? He finally asked. The fight drained out of his shoulders, but his voice stayed tense. Do you want an apology? Do you want me to say I'm evil? He tossed the last word out like a dare, daring me to agree. I want you to admit you knew I wasn't awake, I answered. Not groggy, not playful, not into it, just not there. My hands were gripping the blanket so tight my fingers ached. I need you to stop pretending this was some cute mistake. He broke eye contact then, just for a second, and that was enough. I watched the moment he remembered the exact stillness of my body. His shoulders dropped a fraction, barely noticeable if you did not know him. I knew you were pretty out of it, he muttered, staring at the floor. Pretty out of it, I repeated, every word slow, every syllable sharp. I let the phrase hang between us while he shifted his weight. Would you do that to someone completely knocked out, no chance to wake up? He didn't answer, and that silence told me everything I needed. In that pause, I saw the version of him that scared me. Not a cartoon villain, just a man who preferred convenience over clarity. A man who stepped over my silence because it was easier than facing it. That realization settled in my chest heavier than any label could. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight, I said, standing up. His head snapped up fast, eyes wide with sudden panic. Whoa, hold on, that's dramatic, we can work this out. He reached for my wrist, then stopped himself halfway, smart enough not to grab. You can stay in this bed however you want, I told him. I walked to the dresser and grabbed an old hoodie, nothing else. Until you understand what you did, my body isn't available by default. Saying that out loud actually made my knees wobble, but I kept walking. Behind me, I heard the mattress creak as he sat back down hard. He didn't follow me into the hallway, didn't call after me. I could feel his stare burning into my back while I crossed the threshold. For once, I chose the distance instead of waiting for him to cross it. I dropped onto the couch and opened the app. My hands were still shaking, but at least they were mine. I hit create post and typed the title in one rush. My husband started doing it with me when he thought I was asleep. Seeing those words on the screen punched harder than anything he had said. I stared at the blinking cursor and could not breathe right. Every version I tried to type sounded too soft or too harsh. In the end, I wrote it exactly how it happened, no cushions. I described staying limp on purpose and him never checking once. Then I hovered over post and waited for my nerve to vanish. I hit post before I could talk myself out of it. For a second nothing happened and I felt stupid and exposed. Then the comments started appearing, one line after another. Strangers grabbed pieces of my night and gave them names. I scrolled like I was watching a verdict form in real time. Some people did not hesitate, they called it assault in plain text. Others asked if he had ever done anything like this before. A few demanded to know why I stayed quiet through all of it. Reading that last group burned the most because it echoed my own voice. I wanted to defend him and defend myself at the same time. I typed replies, then erased them, then typed new ones, then erased again. Anything that sounded angry felt unfair, anything soft felt like betrayal. So I closed the reply box and let them keep talking without me. One comment grabbed my attention and would not let go. She wrote that she used to rationalize the same thing in her house. She said the first time she called it what it was, she threw up. Then she told me I was not crazy for feeling shaken. I read that line 3 times until the words finally landed. After a while my phone battery dipped lower and I still scrolled. Every few minutes another stranger dropped in with some version of the same message. They kept writing that this was not okay and I deserved better. The repetition felt like waves I did not know how to stand against. Eventually I dropped the phone beside me and stared at the ceiling. My body buzzed like I had drunk 10 coffees on an empty stomach. Some part of me still wanted to minimize it and crawl back in bed. Another part was already packing boxes in my head and walking out. I heard his footsteps before I saw him standing in the doorway. He looked at the couch, then at me, then at the phone near my hand. "You're really sleeping out here?" His voice came out quieter than earlier. For once he did an odd try to touch me first. I nodded and pulled the blanket higher over my legs like armor. "I'm staying out here until I decide what happens next." His jaw worked for a second before he spoke again. "So that's it, I'm a monster now." His smile looked tight. I sighed once and felt the weight of that word hit both of us. "You're a man who did something that crossed a line I never agreed to. What you choose to do with that information is on you." He stared like he wanted to argue, but the words would not form. That pause told me more than another speech ever could. "I hear you." His voice dropped, one hand rubbing the back of his neck. "I shouldn't have done it like that, I get it now. I was careless, I thought it was just what we did." Hearing him call himself stupid felt almost like a shield he was raising. In the past, that kind of apology would have calmed me down fast. Stupid sounds fixable and careless sounds human and monster sounds final. I could feel him nudging me toward the first two on purpose. This time I kept my feet under me and let the silence stretch. "Here is what I need if you want any chance of us staying together. No more touching me when I am out ever again. If I'm asleep, you leave me alone, end of story. You wake me first and you check in. You make sure I answer, not just grunt or twitch. If you cross that boundary again, I leave, no more discussion." I heard my own voice and barely recognized how steady it sounded. He blinked like I had slapped him harder than any insult. Good, I thought, at least the consequences landed where they belonged. "You'd really leave over this?" His voice cracked on the last word. "I already feel like crap, what more do you want from me?" "I'm telling you, I get it, I screwed up." I watched him twist it into his own suffering and felt my stomach turn. "I am not here to make you feel better about this. I am here to protect myself from you, that's new for me. If you want to stay married, you figure out why you were okay with me silent." He dropped his gaze then, and the fight finally drained out of his shoulders. Without another word, he turned and walked back toward the bedroom. I listened to the soft sounds of him moving around in there. Drawers opened and closed while I lay frozen on the couch. The mattress creaked once, then everything went still again. It sounded like a person pacing inside his own head. I picked up my phone again and opened a fresh note. This time I did not erase what I wrote when it scared me. I listed the rules in simple sentences like I was writing instructions. Then I added one last line, the one that mattered most. "If he breaks these again, I leave, no more experiments." Before I went to sleep, I reopened the post and read it once more. People were still commenting, still arguing over details of my life. Some insisted I had to run, and some urged therapy, and some talked about second chances. I realized none of them had to wake up in my house tomorrow. I plugged in the phone and turned off the lamp, then lay back. The couch was lumpy and my neck already hurt, and I stayed there anyway. I was not sure yet if I would leave him. I was sure I would not go numb for him again. That night was the first time in days I fell asleep, knowing I had chosen myself on purpose.